be emailed out to you right when the webinar ends. You can watch it again, share it with your teammates, and of course, then you'll have my email address. So any further questions that you have, you can email those to me and I'm happy to help you. Without further ado, I'm gonna have to turn off my camera for the screen sharing portion of this, just to make sure we have a good connection. And I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen here. If for whatever reason you're not able to hear me or you're not able to see my screen, which you should be able to see at this point, please just drop a quick chat into the chat box and let me know. But I think I've already got across all the technical issues that I should have for today. So we should be good to go, but definitely let me know. All right, so for today's webinar, we are looking at how managers can allocate resources with purpose. So essentially, a priority matrix for resource management. All right, so what are the challenges that managers typically face when it comes to allocating resources, making sure that everybody has an even workload and nobody's underloaded or overloaded? With all these challenges that I have on the screen, before I kind of dive into them, I want to just say something super quickly, which is the concept that, the challenges that people face when it comes to resource management is definitely something that Priority Matrix can help you all solve. But really, what it comes down to is organizations and teams and managers have really yet to find the perfect solution to be able to collaborate, work together, and delegate tasks. And then at the end of the day, have kind of an automated system to really be able to make sure that their resource management and allocation is, set up properly, essentially. So with Priority Matrix, all of the challenges that we have on the screen here will, essentially be diminished because we've set up Priority Matrix in such a way that it really does help managers see the big picture and understand what's on everybody's plate. So what do those challenges look like when an organization doesn't have the right system in place? It leaves managers unsure of teammates' workloads, which can lead to overloading and underloading teammates. When you're using Microsoft Teams, emails, meeting notes, Excel spreadsheets, and the tasks and priorities are all over the place, at the end of the day, when a manager needs to see what each person is working on, it can essentially be impossible to do that without a central system like Priority Matrix. It also becomes difficult to see the high level overview across all projects. Again, kind of thinking of seeing all priorities in one place. And also, there's no real way to update workload changes when there needs to be kind of a real time modification for the people on your team. So, how does Priority Matrix support you specifically as a manager when you need to see where your resources are allocated and delegated out to, and see what's on everybody's plate for the day or the week? When you use Priority Matrix, you're going to be able to have just one central location for all of your projects and tasks. We've made that incredibly easy for you to achieve with our Office 365 integrations. You're going to be able to use Priority Matrix 100% through your Microsoft Teams platform. Whether you want to continue working in your chats or your channels, or use Priority Matrix for your meeting agendas, or even access the full Priority Matrix app, you can do this 100% through Microsoft Teams. And we're also going to give you a space to see your emails as well. So that's very special, and it helps people switch context significantly less often. Priority Matrix is going to make it super easy for you to see your team's deadlines, scheduled effort hours, and just simply workloads per user. And with our resource management reports, you're going to be able to be really specific on the type of items you're seeing. For me, for example, I work off deadlines. Effort hours aren't as critical for me personally, but I have seen other organizations be super successful with kind of managing priorities based off of effort hours. For me, I like to see, okay, so today's Wednesday. What do my deadlines look like for today, and what do I have due tomorrow? That's just kind of what my day to day looks like. But again, we have a ton of different ways you can actually kind of filter through your reports that we automatically create for you. So before I dive into the live priority matrix demo, which we'll get to in just a couple minutes, I've created a couple screens here just to kind of show you a couple of examples of what the resource management looks like in priority matrix. These reports that I'm going to show you, I have three kind of pinpointed here because I think they're some of the most powerful ones we offer. I am going to show them to you again in the demo, keeping in mind that they're actually all interactive and collaborative. So these are actually just kind of like screenshots of it. But again, I'll show you what it looks like in real time in just a minute. So first and foremost, this is our workload management report. This report was actually created probably maybe 6 months to a year ago. And kind of the backstory behind this is we were working with basically what's the same as CNN, but in the Middle East. So a huge news broadcasting organization. And due to COVID, they actually were going remote and they had thousands of employees. And essentially what was happening is the leadership came to us and said, we are using priority matrix, but we still don't really have the best way to break it down and see users kind of lined up against each other and understand their workload. They were trying to make sure that each person on the team had more or less a similar amount of priorities and deadlines coming up, and one person wasn't significantly overloaded. So with this workload management report, you're able to see the users on the left, and then actually at the top right of the screen where it says mode, you'll see that it says number of items. So that would be based off of number of items that are due for the day. You can also change that to scheduled effort hours. And then there's one other filter. I forget exactly what it is, but there's going to be 3 filtering options, and we'll see those in kind of the live demo. Basically, what happens is you can choose the week that you would like to look at. So this, of course, is the current week. And if you look at Wednesday, the 15th, for myself, which I'm the second user there, it looks like I have 15 items that are specifically due today. So in this case, my manager could actually go in and click on that number 15 and see every single deadline that I have scheduled for today. This is also incredibly helpful because they'd be able to compare myself, for example, against the other users. And maybe at a quick glance, they might need to go into my deadlines and delegate those out to the users that have less items due for the day or the week, essentially. So it's a very interactive workload management report, which again, I'll show you this in kind of a live form in just a moment. Another example that I'm showing you here is what's called our search view. So this is actually pulled right from the Teams integration. And again, I will show you this live, but I just wanted to kind of get this in the front of the screen before we get started. So what the search view allows you to do is, let's say you have a dozen projects, and that's going to make a little bit more sense if you're not familiar with priority matrix, but let's say you have a dozen projects and you have 30 people on your team. And as a manager, you may need to check in on one specific person at a time and basically see their upcoming deadlines. You're able to see when it was last modified, and your teammates will also be able to provide a progress update. So now at a quick glance, as a manager, I would be able to look at this and see, okay, this person has a couple deadlines coming up. The items have been recently modified, so they're not completely forgotten about. And then with that progress update as well, it would help a manager understand that, okay, things are not falling behind. And it looks like this person does have a pretty reasonable amount of deadlines coming up. We don't really need to go back and manage the resources that we've assigned to them, essentially. So that's kind of the concept of the search view here. It's not exactly a report, however, it is commonly used from a management perspective. Lastly, before I actually dive into the priority matrix demo, I also wanted to show you the possibility of using item tags for resource management. So item tags are basically attached to each priority or item that you're working with, and it helps you group things together across projects. So the top bar you see there is essentially, as a team here at Affluence, it's our starred items. So they were able to see what's completed, what's overdue, new items, and what's open. So at a super quick glance, we may look at this and be like, okay, the start items appear to have the most overdue items. We may need to get more people on top of these and kind of circle back and, see more resources that we can assign to the start items essentially. Again, this is interactive and I'll show you this in the demo, but if I were to click on that red bar where it says starred, it would show me every single overdue item that's being referred to here. So those are just a couple of teasers to, hopefully get you guys more interested and help you stick around through the whole duration of this webinar. Because in my opinion, these are going to be some of the best reports in terms of kind of resource management, but there's probably at least a dozen more reports that we have that we can kind of take a look at together today. So what are we going to look at in the priority matrix demo portion? It's going to be pretty quick. It'll probably only take about 10 minutes or so, but first and foremost, I'm going to do kind of a quick basic introduction just for a minute or two for those of you who are seeing priority matrix for the first time. I'm going to help you understand best practices for managers, and kind of what goes hand in hand with that is the resource management tools. At the very end of the demo, again, I'm going to save plenty of time for the live discussion and the Q&A where we can all kind of chat and, get to know one another's use cases, and I'll answer any questions that you might have. So without further ado, let's go to my priority matrix. Get us to the right screen here. Technical issues before webinars are so fun. They leave the presenter a little bit frazzled, but I think we're doing good here. All right, so what are we looking at on my screen here? This is my priority matrix, and I have it running 100% through my Teams platform. So as I mentioned, you can use the full web app like we are looking at here through Teams. And I always suggest pinning that open so it stays readily available for you. You can also use Priority Matrix through your channels and your chats if that's where you're working heavily. But as I mentioned at the start of this presentation, managers are going to get the most out of Priority Matrix when they have all of their projects, all of their teammates, and all of their priorities in one place. So when it comes to generating these reports and getting a bird's eye overview across everything, you don't have to dig around from one platform to another. Quick side note, there's a really cool functionality if you're using Priority Matrix through your chats and channels where you can actually turn a comment into a prioritized action item. So for those of you who feel like your team's comments and conversations are slipping through the cracks, Priority Matrix will be a solution for that. So kind of the general layout of Priority Matrix allows you to create projects. And these projects function as that central space where if anything comes up that needs to be delegated to your teammates, any conversations that need to happen, or even new projects that your team is assigned to, they go into Priority Matrix. I've just opened up a project here to show you a quick example as to basically the importance of your item details and how this plays into generating those resource and workload management reports that I showed you at the very beginning of this presentation. So here we have a bunch of different action items that in this example would help us contribute to the product development project. So let's just create a new task for webinar, and then we'll say this is going to be due in 4 hours, just as an example here. All right, so what happens when you create a task, and this is going to get a little bit technical, but the reason I'm showing you this is because this is how the reports are generated, is based off of the details you plug into the item details essentially. So on the right-hand side here, a couple of things I want to walk you through. Let's pretend I'm the manager overseeing this project here. When I create this task, automatically I am the owner. So first and foremost, I can say, all right, I'm assigning this task to my teammate here who's now going to be responsible for working on or completing this task. When I typed due in 4 hours, the system automatically set the deadline for me. You can also manually add your due date just by clicking on it, setting the due date and start date if you want to. Or another best practice would be to say, let's say due in 2 days into the chat box. If I type it, you'll see the system pick that up and it's going to modify the deadline for me. So that is called a conversation command, just a kind of fun best practice for you to quickly update your item. You can also say, let's see, progress is 80%. It turns green, again, meaning the system picked it up and the progress will be updated for you. We can say, remind everybody in 10 minutes. This is a team favorite. Anyways, those are just a couple examples. The conversation commands are very popular, very quick way to kind of run through your item details without having to use the interface to click through everything, essentially. So last but not least, you can also schedule your effort hours. This is, one of the things that I definitely see varying by organization. Every single organization uses the task delegation, they use deadlines, and they use this as a space to communicate. But using effort hours, again, that's essentially hit or miss with the different teams that I work with. But if that is important for how your organization tracks your priorities and kind of your progress, definitely get in there and schedule the effort hours, because that's why we have it for you here, is because indeed there are some people that really value that view. So essentially that's just one example of a project. But when you're using priority matrix for all projects, all priorities, and all teammates, you're going to have a handful of projects. I see people ranging from 10 projects to, believe it or not, here at Affluence, we have 400 projects, which I kind of chuckle when I say that, because it takes people back a little bit when they hear that. But trust me, if you use the right project tags, if you learn how to filter correctly, 400 projects is more manageable than having 20 different spreadsheets that you're trying to juggle through as kind of a manager. All right, so once you've got everything into priority matrix and your team has been using it thoroughly for maybe even just a week, you should be able to get some pretty good reports out of here. What you're going to do, and make sure you have the latest version of priority matrix installed into Teams, because my engineers are so wonderful. I went to them late last night and they said, hey guys, I need one more thing added to the Teams integration before this presentation. And they got it added for me and it works flawlessly. So if you have it installed into Teams already, just reboot your Teams platform and it will automatically update your priority matrix. But what we're going to be focusing on here, and just to show you how I got to this view, is it's very simple. I just clicked on these 4 lines in the top left corner. And the first thing I'm going to show you is the workload management report. So again, what happens here is this is a list of essentially all of my teammates listed out here. And then here's my account. So basically what we can do is we can see, okay, here's Wednesday, the 23rd. Erica has 3 items that are due today. As I mentioned in the presentation portion of this, if I click on it, it'll give me an interactive list of everything that I have due today. So for some managers who have, kind of the extra bandwidth to go in and analyze what actual items are going to be due, that's phenomenal. And that's why this accessibility is here for you. But for a lot of managers, the big picture of just simply making sure that work is, kind of allocated out correctly and the correct resources are here, so everybody's not like completely overflowing with their workload. Having this big picture of just being able to line up one user against the next can really be as far as a lot of people need to go, again, just to make sure that workloads are even. In terms of the mode and the types of items that you're seeing, so number of items, again, would be your due dates. Effort hours, I don't know how this is going to look, again, because I don't personally use effort hours a whole lot. And then scheduled hours. So, basically across all of our items, how many scheduled hours do you have due for that day. So it looks like tomorrow got a big a big workload ahead of me. I have a lot to get done. So those are going to be the different kind of modes you can toggle through. And then again, you can choose the time frame as to when you would like to see the workload management report. I've spoken with dozens of managers who, before they found this workload management report, they've told me that they felt essentially blind to understanding the workload across all of their users. And it turns out that some people were significantly underloaded while others were basically flooding in deadlines. And with the workload management report, they were able to go back and delegate tasks out in a more basically appropriate way to give everybody an even workload. The next thing I want to show you all is more so the general reports. What happens here is you're going to have a couple of different options of reports that you can see. So I think what I'm going to click on for us today is the last 7 days. That's going to give us a pretty good view of the reports that we can look at. So basically, you just click on open. And then here, as a manager, this becomes really special because you can say, all right, show me only one teammate essentially, or you could click on two people at the same time and it's going to give you more of a kind of group report, essentially, if you will, if you just want to see how your team is doing as a whole. But basically, what happens here is you're able to see your active projects and completed items, the quadrants where you're spending your most time. And then if you go down, this is going to be the item report essentially that we looked at with the item tags. And again, as a manager, I can go here and I can actually click on it, and it's going to show me all the overdue items that are in reference here. And then it shows me the owner of the item as well. So this is again a really great way to kind of get that high level overview of item tags that you've set up. And I might as well circle back since we're looking at this and just show you all how to add item tags. It's very simple and it generates really, really useful reports. As we continue to scroll down, you're going to see that there's an incredible variety of reports here, and they're all being generated based off of the movement that your team has in priority matrix. So again, I talk to so many people every single day, and a lot of them are managers. And a lot of the times at the start of our meetings, they sound defeated. They sound just generally kind of overwhelmed with the reports they have to generate. But when the big picture kind of comes into play and they realize that all they have to do is start using priority matrix with their team, which that alone takes away a lot of the burden of using emails, Excel spreadsheets, scheduling so many meetings. And then they come to realize that there's actually going to be automatically generated reports at the end of the day. It's kind of a no-brainer for people to switch over to this platform. You can also export this to a PDF as well if you'd like to put it into a presentation or share it with somebody who's not in the system with you. So I think that actually kind of sums up the reporting that I wanted to show you all. And so what I'm going to do is circle back to my PowerPoint here and just do kind of one final slide, and then we'll be able to open it up to kind of the discussion in the Q&A. So with all of this information and kind of the value that you're seeing at this point, you're probably wondering, how do we actually go ahead and get started with Priority Matrix? First and foremost, the most important step will be onboarding all of your teammates and projects. If you're already using a different Office application or an Excel spreadsheet, we've provided streamlined ways for you to import that data into Priority Matrix. So transitioning into the system is not a headache. It's actually going to be pretty seamless. And if you need help with any of that, we can definitely assist you there. Once you get your project streamlined into Priority Matrix, you can use features such as custom templates. You can create those and share them with your teammates, or you can use the templates that we've created for you. If you have questions on the templates, let me know. I'd love to expand on that during our discussion. And then with all of that being said, the last step would be giving you the opportunity to utilize the Priority Matrix reports that we just looked at together. So, what are the key takeaways? Priority Matrix creates one central space for your team to work together. And it's not just this, but again, keep in mind that central system will actually be your Microsoft Teams application. So, for those of you who are either heavy team users already, or you're actually working on gearing your team up to use Microsoft Teams more, either way, Teams will be able to function as that central system that you can rely on with Priority Matrix. You're going to be able to use the reporting and analytics to assign resources accordingly. And with all of that being said, the biggest goal is to make sure all of your users have an appropriate workload. So nobody's underloaded, nobody's, drowning in deadlines for the day. Everybody can, work together, reach their highest potential when you're able to make sure that the workload is distributed properly. All right, so I'm going to jump to this discussion slide. And this is actually, again, my favorite part of the presentation where I'm able to hear from the audience here and either answer your questions, or I would love to hear some participation in kind of answering these discussion questions that I have up on the screen. So if you'd either like to contribute to this, or if you simply have a question, just use the hand emoji at the top of this presentation or essentially the meeting. And once I see your hand come up, I can take you off mute and then, we can actually chat and I can answer those questions and kind of hear your feedback here. Some common questions that typically come up at this point are people asking, okay, how do I get started and what's my support system going to look like with this new tool? So I think that's a great question because there's absolutely no doubt in anybody's mind here today that adopting a new system is, it's challenging. It's never going to be easy to, ask people to use a new software or, not only that, but actually learn the new tool. It's, probably not anybody's favorite thing to do. So we've worked our hardest to create a very well-rounded YouTube channel. New videos are getting added to that daily. I'm continuously hosting webinars, introduction webinars, and those kind of based off of specific topics like the one we have today. With that being said, I'm going to send you all a follow-up email, and I would love to hear your feedback. What you liked about the webinar, what could have done, what I could have done better. And also if you're thinking, hey, this topic would be super helpful for my team, I would love to connect with you, learn more about that, and then put a custom presentation together actually specifically for your team and allow others to watch it as well. For our enterprise customers, we also offer one-on-one and group training sessions to kind of connect with you, build that relationship, and make sure you're able to succeed as best as you can with Priority Matrix. We do also offer a free 2-week trial period for you all to get started with your teammates. And with that trial, it's unlimited access. You're going to be able to test out everything in Priority Matrix and also utilize the resources that I just mentioned. All right, well, if there are no questions coming up right now, we can kind of wrap up the webinar for today. Again, I'm going to mention it one more time just because it's so important to me, but I would love to hear your feedback. I would love to hear your thoughts on this presentation. And if there's any other webinars that I can create specifically for your team, let me know, and I would love to work together with you to do so. I'm going to go ahead and